Okay, welcome everybody. Are you, Pat, you're frowning. Are you having a problem receiving something? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. Something that came across my screen. I'm going to put focus, do not disturb.
Oh, good idea. Okay, how about everybody take a nice deep breath and just feel yourself present with yourself. Scan your body as best you can. Just release, just be welcoming and accepting. I want this, well, I want everything I do, I want it to be usable. I don't want it to just be conceptual. You know, one of the common things we say is, I know that conceptually, but it doesn't do any good. Ever find yourself saying that? So that's one of, you know, I talk about language being inherently hypnotic, and that if you're a hypnotherapy practitioner, some of you have trained with me, it's really a very powerful insight, because then you don't have to worry about whether people can be hypnotized, because they already are hypnotized. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to present it in kind of that esoteric way, like, whoa, so, you know, it's much more granular. It's like your problems are hypnotic states. And I always find that people get that right away. They go, oh, you know, because it's not, you can't go buy these problems at the store, you know, you're creating them and believing them, and that's hypnosis. So then they come in, maybe saying, well, I don't know if I can be hypnotized. I don't know if you can hypnotize me. But when you say too late, your problem states are already hypnotic states, and you're already a hypnosis master. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to keep them persisting. And so then they relax and are willing to, they might not think this, but they change their posture to one that's more encouraged. Like, I can work on things. I can make changes. So in that context, I want this to be enhance your skillfulness at releasing unwanted trances and connecting more with authenticity, if you will. So the more you're willing to be forthcoming with issues, the more I can work with specific challenges, and that benefits everyone. So in that regard, another thing people are always, people often hold back. So there's a sense of shame and guilt. And it's really important to understand that in order to have shame and guilt, you have to first start with a diluted sense of uniqueness. Like, I'm the only one that has this problem. So I can't let anybody find out, because then they can all throw me away. So it's really powerful to simply recognize there is no ownership. That's another aspect of the hypnotic nature of language. I, me, my car, my problem, my wife, my this, my that. Those aren't real things. They're just conceptual agreements. There's no actual ownership. So my thoughts, you don't own your thoughts. They're not your thoughts. They're human thoughts. Your emotions, my emotions, you don't own your emotions. They're human emotions. My body, you don't own your body. You're experiencing a human body. So that means there's no cause for shame. We're all having the same experience of human body mind. There's no unique problem you can have that other people either don't also have or have the potential to have under the right conditions. That brings up another diluted aspect of how we think, which is we think in denial of context, shall we say. We think, we don't realize we're thinking in absolutes, but when we think something, a judgment, it's an absolute. We don't question the context. In regard to what I just said a minute ago, you might have a problem. It's a human problem. It's not your own exclusive problem. You might look at someone else and say, well, they don't have it. But because they're a human being, they have the potential to have it. And all that needs to happen is for the context to change. If they're in a context of the same causes and conditions that are creating the problem in you, it will be created in them. Everything is just constant flux of creative activity, constant. And so you can say it that way, and then maybe that's not so useful. Too general, creative activity. But if you say everything's a constant flux of causes and conditions, now you have something to work with. You can look around, what are the conditions? What are the causes? Like people might, in the vein of, I know that conceptually, but it doesn't help. They might say, I know I'm creating my problem. I read all the news. I know I'm the creator, New Age, this, whatever that. But it doesn't help. That's because you aren't unpacking what it means to be the creator. What are the qualities of creation? It's totally dependent on causes and conditions. So instead of asking, how do I create this? You could ask, it could be useful, depends on the person, depends on the moment. At any given moment, any thought form could be useful. But if it's not, then you want to recognize you're not lost. Change to a different thought form. Like sometimes you might ask, how am I creating this? And you might get useful information. Maybe you also sometimes get blank. So then you could switch to, well, what are the causes and conditions allowing this to be here? Like causes and conditions just changed and made Emerson appear out of thin air. So be free of shame. That's one thing. Enjoy sharing, realizing you're being generous. You're sharing about the human condition, which everyone can relate to. And then another thing that comes up, if you get past that, people think, oh, I'm taking up too much time and this is, boring people. You're sharing about the human condition. Everybody can relate. So you're not robbing the stage, unless that's your intention, which is not really sharing. It's grabbing attention. Look at me, which we can work with. I'm the only one allowed to do that. Just kidding. So I want to ask for a volunteer quite yet. So this first week, the topic is the forgotten root of the problem, which is the forgotten root is self-rejection. But you have to understand, people often attack themselves if they hear something like that and they say, I don't understand, must mean I'm stupid. No, if you don't understand something, it simply means you don't have a definition for the terms. So ask for the terms to be defined. Self, what is that? What's the definition of self that we're working? Could a lot of definitions of self. What we mean by self here is being. There is, again, there's no ownership of being. Being is not limited to the physical body. It's the ocean of being from which we arise as waves. So when we're self-rejection in sense of rejecting being, first of all, you can't, just because you're using a noun, this is another aspect of hypnotic quality of language, being, self. Nouns are things. And again, someone's about to manifest out of thin air. Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome.
Good day. Sorry
Welcome.
I'm late.
That's okay. You have to just sit in the back of the class. So we're taught that nouns are things. We immediately hallucinate thingness when we hear a noun, self, according to what we've associated with that word under the circumstances of causes and conditions. Causes and conditions is the environment in which we make associations for nouns, literally for every word we understand. But we want to look at nouns. So since you're implying thingness, that means thingness can't be thingness without being able to perceive it. It's completely irrelevant, not irrelevant. What's the word? I mean, it is irrelevant, but it's kind of a double bind. It's ironic because thingness requires the ability to perceive the thing. Otherwise, how would you know a thing was there? So perception is inextricably bound to thingness. Can't have a thing without perception, okay? But what we're using those words to represent in this particular discussion, we're using the words self and being to represent that which cannot be perceived. So another level of irony is, while you can't perceive being, you can reject being. But you can't reject something that has no thingness, like the essential beingness can't be perceived. It's not a thing. But qualities of being, qualities of the activity of being can be perceived. The qualities, the inherent qualities of being are all pure. And I mean that in a very practical sense. We have a lot of associations with that word, pure, meaning good. I don't mean good. It's nothing, I never want you to think I'm talking moralistically ever. And I often point that out. Sometimes I forget, but we have a lot of moralistic associations with pure. Like it means it's, good, moralistically good. It's much more simple than that. Pure means just one thing, nothing else, like pure water. Unadulterated. So all the qualities of being, because there is only being, there's not an alternative being like alternative news, alternative facts. There is no alternative being. There's just being, which can't be perceived, but it's pure because it's nothing. It's unadulterated being, which means all the qualities, all the ways in which being manifests, they're also pure. So some of the qualities are familiar to us as, depending on your education, as virtues: pure joy, pure generosity, pure love, pure patience, pure enthusiasm. These are qualities of being, of the functionality of being. Pure responsiveness, pure enthusiasm, vibrant responsiveness. So these are qualities of pure being, and you find these in unharmed little child. An unharmed little child is a manifestation, moment by moment, of pure being until interruptions take place from the environment, from the way they're parented. Until interruptions take place, it's manifestation of pure being. When a child is the key is it's pure because it's unself-conscious. A little child is unself-conscious. Very vibrant, very responsive, obviously very alive, but they don't have any storyline going like keeping track of themselves, or I'm looking good today, or I hope nobody sees me, blah, blah, blah. You know, that kind of conceptual activity is not going on yet. So it's pure being. So I like to represent it, some of you are familiar, it's like moment by moment, it's Yahoo, Yahoo. Pure, unrestricted pulse of vibrant life. That's includes the pulse of everything else in the entire universe at that moment. There's no separation. It's the universe is one unified pulse of being, moment by moment. We zero in on what we think of as objects. We conceptually segment them out as if there's separation, but there actually is no separation. There's perceptual separation, like I'm over here, you're over there. But in terms of energetic being, it's undivided energetic being. It's like the ocean's on a wave. You could say there's that wave over there and there's that wave over there, but there's no separation in terms of the water. There are no separate waves. It's all the ocean waving. So the separation is is what appears as the activity of the unified field functioning. So we are a manifestation of pure being, nothing but being. But when the experience of manifesting that way is attacked, like you go Yahoo, at a certain point, you've been going Yahoo and it's been fine for a few days, a few weeks, a few months. Some people start sooner than others. And suddenly you go Yahoo and you get hit. The initial response to that is to push it away, because part of the manifestation is a hardwired survival instinct. And the prime directive of the survival instinct is to push away insults. Well, so again, it's not self-conscious, it's instinctive, it's lightning fast, push away insult. But if you're in an environment of causes and conditions where when you push away the insult, the source of the insult beats the shit out of you, you get the message, this is not allowed. This is not allowed. but it's hardwired vitality. It's hardwired assertive energy. It has to figure out what to do. It still has the prime directive to make you survive. It built in was the way you're going to make you survive is push away insults. But now, what your responsiveness to pushing away insults, you find out you can't push those away. Plus, in general, children don't have a functioning frontal cortex until around the age of 7. The main significance of that is you cannot understand causality. You can't understand the way things really work. You cannot understand that the nature of these giants, that they're human beings with internal lives full of suffering. To you, they're just giant forces that can do all of this stuff. And they can do whatever they want to you. And you have an instinctive bond to them as a source of support and nurturance and protection. That bond, again, that's hardwired. If that source of protection behaves in abusive ways, because you can't discriminate, you're operating still at a distinct and instinctive level. If they're behaving in an abusive way, your internal radar is set to search for abusive activity as the source of nurturing, protection, and support. Because you can't separate the two. You can't think, they shouldn't be treating me that way. That's not supportive. That's not nurturing. You have no alternatives. What they are teaching you viscerally the laws of the universe. And plus they're telling you that. Like if they're beating you up and telling you this is what you deserve, you go, yeah, I spilled my milk. This is what I deserve. I spilled my milk. That proves I don't deserve love and deserve to be punished. Law of universe. Because you don't have a discriminating faculty. So what happens is your survival instinct, struggling to fulfill its prime directive, it starts to recognize what's the problem? Well, it seems to be whenever this burst of vitality goes forth, there's a punishment. So being, the vibrant function of being is targeted as being the problem. Because whenever you go Yahoo, you get hit. Since you can't recognize the hitter is the problem, then the internal logic is the vitality of being is the problem. And so this exuberant, assertive energy that pushes away insult, instead of pushing away the real insult, it pushes down vitality. If I stop the vitality from going out, I don't get hit. And it's not in a general way, it's because when the insults are coming, it's also coming with either explicit or implicit instructions on how you're supposed to behave. So you push down the vitality, the spontaneous exuberance, and you start rehearsing how to behave the way they're telling you to behave, which means you start building the performance robot. And you start giving your allegiance to the performance robot as you're rejecting being, which is self-rejection.